Every family has a weak link, but my family has a black hole. Her name is Aunt Cassandra. For as long as I can remember, Cassandra has been a professional victim, an emotional vampire who thrives on the sympathy, resources, and unending patience of everyone around her. If you had a headache, she had a migraine that required total darkness and a cold compress delivered by a willing servant. If you broke your leg, she suddenly developed a mysterious, undiagnosable joint condition that meant she couldn't possibly help carry groceries or do dishes for the next 6 months. She was a masterclass in manipulation, a maestro of the minor tragedy. But up until recently, her scams were small time. They were irritations, not life-destroying events. That all changed the year I turned 30, the year Cassandra decided that stealing the spotlight wasn't enough. She wanted to steal my grandparents' entire future. To understand the absolute devastation of what she attempted, you have to understand my grandparents, Arthur and Alina. They are the kind of people who genuinely believe in the fundamental goodness of everyone they meet. They've lived in the same beautiful, rambling Victorian house in upstate New York for 52 years. It was the house where my mother and Cassandra grew up. It was the house where we spent every Christmas, the air thick with the smell of cinnamon, pine, and my grandfather's pipe tobacco. The floorboards creaked in a way that felt like a familiar greeting, and the walls were lined with decades of family history, framed in tarnished silver and warm oak. It wasn't just a house, it was the anchor of our entire family. Nana and Papa, as I call them, had worked their fingers to the bone to pay it off, surviving layoffs, recessions, and the countless expenses of raising a family. Their retirement was supposed to be peaceful, gardening in the backyard and hosting Sunday dinners. I, on the other hand, am not cursed with my grandparents' blinding optimism. I am a 30-year-old investigative journalist for a mid-sized independent publication known for deep-dive exposés on corporate fraud and political corruption. My entire career is built on the premise that people lie, and that the truth is usually buried under a mountain of carefully constructed paperwork. I spend my days tracking shell companies, interviewing whistleblowers, and parsing through redacted tax returns. I am deeply cynical, intensely observant, and I have a profound, instinctual allergy to bullshit. And Cassandra radiated bullshit like a radioactive core. The nightmare began on Thanksgiving. We were all gathered around the massive mahogany dining table at Nana and Papa's house. The mood was festive, the wine was flowing, and the turkey had just been carved. Cassandra had been unusually quiet all day, sitting by the fire wrapped in a thick wool blanket, sipping hot water with lemon, and sighing loudly enough to rattle the windows. We were just passing the mashed potatoes when she abruptly stood up, tapping her water glass with a silver spoon. "Family," she began, her voice trembling with practiced fragility, "I have something to tell you all. I didn't want to ruin the holiday, but the doctors say I don't have much time." The room instantly froze, forks dropped, my grandmother let out a sharp gasp, her hand flying to her chest. Even I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. Nobody wants to hear that, not even about someone they deeply dislike. Cassandra let the silence hang, milking every agonized second of it. A single, perfect tear rolled down her cheek. "I've been diagnosed with advanced idiopathic neuromyelitic fibrosarcoma. It's extremely rare, it's aggressive, and my oncologist in the city told me yesterday that traditional treatments won't work." Pandemonium erupted. My mother started crying. Nana rushed around the table to wrap Cassandra in a desperate embrace. Papa sat frozen, staring at his youngest daughter as if she had just turned to ash before his eyes. I sat perfectly still, watching Cassandra's face. Over Nana's sobbing shoulder, Cassandra's eyes darted around the room, taking in the terror and grief she had caused. There was no fear in her eyes. There was only a hungry, satisfied gleam. The spotlight was finally, absolutely, undeniably hers. Over the next 3 weeks, our family descended into a living hell of Cassandra's making. She moved into my grandparents' house, claiming her apartment was too drafty and she needed round-the-clock care. She took over the master bedroom, banishing my grandparents to the small guest room on the first floor. She stopped working, stopped driving, and seemingly stopped doing anything for herself. But the real blow came during a hastily called family meeting in mid-December. Cassandra, propped up on a throne of pillows, held a glossy, expensive-looking brochure in her hands. "There is one hope," she whispered, her voice barely a rasp. "There's an experimental clinic in Geneva. They specialize in my exact variant of the disease. They have an 80% remission rate with their proprietary stem cell therapy." "Then you have to go," Papa said immediately, his voice thick with emotion. "Whatever it takes, Cassie, we'll figure it out." Cassandra looked down, her lower lip trembling. "I can't, Papa. The treatment protocol is 6 months long. Between the clinic fees, the specialized housing, the flights, the private nursing. It's over $300,000. And because it's an experimental trial in Switzerland, my insurance won't cover a single cent. They denied my claim this morning. I'm going to die because I'm not rich." She buried her face in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. "No," Papa said fiercely, standing up. "No, you are not. I won't let money be the reason I bury my daughter." He turned to my grandmother, who nodded without a second of hesitation. "We'll sell the house. It's fully paid off. The market is hot. We can get 400,000 for it easily. It will cover the treatment and leave us enough for a small apartment down the road." My heart stopped. "Papa, no," I interjected, stepping forward. "You can't sell this house. You've lived here for half a century. Let's look at other options. Let's set up a GoFundMe, let's look for grants, let's get a second opinion." Cassandra's head snapped up, glaring at me with sudden, terrifying venom. "A second opinion? Do you think I haven't tried that? Do you think I want them to sell their home? How dare you, when I am fighting for my life, try to deny me my only chance at survival because you're nostalgic about some stupid floorboards?" "Cassie, please don't upset yourself," Nana cooed, rubbing her back. She shot me a deeply disappointed look. "Your aunt's life is more important than bricks and wood. We are selling the house. The decision is made." I left the house that night feeling physically sick. The thought of strangers ripping up the gardens my grandfather planted, the thought of my grandparents spending their final years in a cramped, sterile apartment just to fund Cassandra's medical miracle, ate at me like acid. But more than that, something in my gut, that journalist's instinct that had never steered me wrong, was screaming at me. Idiopathic neuromyelitic fibrosarcoma. I went home, opened my laptop, and typed the diagnosis into the most advanced medical databases I had access to through my publication. Nothing. I broadened the search. I looked for variations of the spelling. I looked for clinical trials in Geneva. I searched PubMed, the Mayo Clinic database, and international oncology registries. There was no such disease. The words sounded medical, they sounded terrifying, but put together, they were absolute gibberish. It was the medical equivalent of a Nigerian prince email. The fury that ignited inside me in that moment was colder and sharper than anything I had ever felt. She wasn't just manipulating them for attention, she was financially destroying them. She was committing felony fraud against her own elderly parents. But I knew I couldn't just walk in and announce my findings. Cassandra was a master manipulator. If I went to my family with a Google search, she would claim I was looking in the wrong databases, that it was a highly classified trial, that I was just a hateful, jealous niece trying to kill her. My grandparents, desperate to save their daughter, would believe her. If I was going to take her down and save my grandparents' home, I needed irrefutable, undeniable, catastrophic proof. I needed a paper trail so solid a hurricane couldn't blow it away. I needed to treat my aunt like the subject of a front-page exposé. The investigation began the next morning. My first target was the money. My grandparents had moved terrifyingly fast. They had found a cash buyer, a real estate developer looking to flip Victorian homes, who offered them $380,000 for a quick, 30-day close. The money had been wired directly into an account Cassandra had set up specifically for the medical expenses. I needed to see where that money was going. Hacking a bank account is illegal, and I am a professional who operates strictly within the bounds of the law, utilizing open-source intelligence, public records, and the careless digital footprints criminals always leave behind. I started with Cassandra's digital life. She claimed she was too weak to be on social media, having deactivated her main Facebook and Instagram accounts shortly after the diagnosis. But narcissists can never truly go off the grid. They need an audience. I used a burner phone and a dummy email to scour Instagram for secondary accounts, cross-referencing her phone number, her email addresses, and the usernames she used for obscure Pinterest boards. It took me 3 days of relentless digging, but I found it. A private Instagram account under the handle @Cassie Living Her Best, created just 2 weeks after she announced her diagnosis. I needed to see what was behind that privacy wall. I created a fake persona, an influencer focusing on holistic wellness and high-end travel, the exact kind of aspirational garbage Cassandra consumed. I populated the account with stolen stock photos of matcha lattes, infinity pools, and vague inspirational quotes. I followed her and waited. 2 days later, she accepted my request and followed back. When I opened her feed, I had to physically restrain myself from throwing my laptop against the wall. There were no hospital beds. There were no IV drips. There were no dreary Swiss clinics. There was Cassandra, glowing with health, holding a mimosa on a white sand beach. There was Cassandra, showing off a fresh set of expensive acrylic nails. There was Cassandra, doing yoga on a balcony overlooking the ocean. The geolocation tags were turned off, but I didn't need them. I downloaded every single photo, enlarged them, and started analyzing the backgrounds. In one photo, she was holding a designer shopping bag. In the reflection of her oversized sunglasses, I could make out the distorted neon sign of a very specific, high-end seafood restaurant. I ran the image through a visual search engine, tweaking the contrast until the letters popped. The Rusty Pelican. A quick search revealed the restaurant was located in Miami, Florida. She wasn't in Switzerland. She wasn't dying. She was in Florida. But I needed to know what she did with the $380,000. A few trips to Miami wouldn't drain that account. She was planning something bigger. I turned my attention to public property records in Florida. Florida has incredibly transparent public records laws. I searched every county in South Florida for property deeds registered under Cassandra's legal name, or any obvious LLCs she might have created. For 2 weeks, I hit a brick wall. The closing date on my grandparents' house was approaching, and they were frantically packing up 50 years of memories into cardboard boxes. Every time I visited, Papa looked 10 years older, the stress of the move and his daughter's illness weighing on him like physical stones. Nana cried constantly. I helped them pack, smiling through my teeth, knowing I was sitting on a ticking time bomb. Then, a breakthrough. I realized Cassandra wouldn't be stupid enough to use her own name right away, but she was vain. I ran a search through the Florida Division of Corporations for newly registered. I cross-referenced the registration dates with the date the funds cleared from my grandparents' house sale. I filtered the results by registered agents in the Miami-Dade and Broward County areas. There it was. An LLC registered on December 28th. The name? Miracle Cure Holdings, LLC. It was so brazen, so obscenely arrogant that I almost laughed. I pulled the incorporation documents. The registered agent was a local Miami lawyer, but the managing member listed on the secondary operating agreement, a document carelessly attached to the public filing by a paralegal making a clerical error, was Cassandra. I took the LLC name and ran it back through the Miami-Dade County Property Appraisers database. Bingo! Miracle Cure Holdings, LLC had just closed on a $450,000 luxury condominium in a high-rise building in Boca Raton. She had used my grandparents' $380,000 as a massive cash down payment, securing a small mortgage for the rest. I had the motive. I had the location. I had the money trail. But to truly nail her to the wall in front of the family, I needed her own voice. I needed her to confess. I called in a favor. I have a friend, Marcus, who is a licensed private investigator based in Fort Lauderdale. We had traded favors on previous journalistic pieces. I sent him the address of the Boca Raton condo and a generous retainer. I need eyes on this place, I told him over an encrypted call. I need to know if she's there, who she's talking to, and I need audio if she's stupid enough to take phone calls on her balcony. You got it, Marcus said. What's the mark? My aunt, I replied. She's faking cancer to buy real estate. Marcus whistled. Ice cold, I'll get you what you need. 3 days later, Marcus delivered a goldmine. Cassandra was not only living in the condo, She was completely redecorating it. Marcus had staked out the pool area directly below her third-floor balcony. He used a directional parabolic microphone, perfectly legal in a public space capturing ambient sound from an open, exterior balcony. He sent me an audio file. I put on my noise-canceling headphones, locked my office door, and hit play. First, there was the sound of seagulls, then the clinking of ice in a glass. Then, Cassandra's voice, loud, clear, and dripping with smug satisfaction. She was on the phone with someone, likely a friend who was in on the grift. "I know, right?" Cassandra laughed, a shrill, piercing sound. "The marble countertops arrive on Tuesday. God, I can't wait. No, no, they have no idea. My mom is literally packing up her porcelain dolls right now, crying over the house. It's pathetic, honestly. But hey, boomers ruined the economy. They owe us a house, right?" The Swiss clinic excuse worked like a charm. "I just told them the doctors need absolute isolation for my immune system, so they can't even visit or call too often. It's the perfect crime, babe. I'm literally sipping a mojito in Boca while they pack my boxes in the snow." My blood ran cold. The sheer malice, the total lack of empathy was breathtaking. I had the smoking gun. But Cassandra, in her infinite hubris, wasn't satisfied with just stealing their house. She wanted to milk the tragedy for every last drop of sympathy and cash from our extended community. A week before my grandparents were scheduled to hand over the keys to their house, Cassandra announced she was throwing a celebration of life and healing fundraiser at the local country club. "The treatment is working, but the aftercare is going to be incredibly expensive," she explained via a tearful video message sent to the family group chat, recorded against a blank white wall to hide her Florida tan. "I want to see everyone before I go back into isolation. I want to celebrate the time I have left." She had invited the entire extended family, family friends, people from her church, even my grandparents' neighbors. She was charging $50 a plate, holding a silent auction, and setting up donation jars on every table. She was turning her fake terminal illness into a gala event. It was the perfect stage. She had built her own scaffold. All I had to do was pull the lever. The night of the fundraiser arrived. The country club ballroom was draped in muted, solemn colors. Soft, melancholic piano music played through the overhead speakers. There were easily 200 people there. My grandparents sat at the VIP table near the front, looking utterly exhausted. Papa was wearing a suit that suddenly looked 3 sizes too big for him. Nana clutched a crumpled tissue in her hands. Then, Cassandra made her grand entrance. She arrived in a wheelchair, pushed by a hired nurse. She was wearing a loose, flowing white dress that made her look spectral and fragile. She had used makeup to pale her face and draw dark circles under her eyes, though she couldn't completely hide the healthy, sun-kissed glow of her Boca Raton tan beneath the heavy foundation. The room erupted into applause. People were crying. They were handing her envelopes stuffed with cash as she was wheeled down the center aisle. I stood by the soundboard at the back of the room. Cassandra had asked me to run the AV equipment for the night, claiming she wanted a professional to handle the slideshow of her brave journey. It was the worst mistake she ever made. Cassandra was helped up to the stage. She gripped the podium, taking shallow, dramatic breaths. "Thank you all for coming," she whispered into the microphone, her voice echoing through the silent room. "This journey has been the hardest thing I've ever faced. The pain, the fear of the unknown. But looking at all of you, looking at my incredible parents who sacrificed their beautiful home to give me a chance at life, I know I am blessed." Nana sobbed loudly. Papa wiped a tear from his eye. "I've prepared a small slideshow," Cassandra continued, gesturing weakly toward the massive projector screen behind her. "Pictures of my journey, the good days and the bad. To remind us all to cherish every moment." She nodded at me. That was my cue. I didn't play her slideshow. I bypassed her USB drive entirely and mirrored my laptop screen directly to the projector. The melancholic piano music abruptly cut out. The screen flashed blindingly white for a second, then resolved into a massive, high-definition image. It was a screenshot of the Florida property deed. The words Miracle Cure Holdings, LLC and Cassandra, last name, were highlighted in bright, neon yellow. Below it was the purchase price, $450,000. A murmur of confusion rippled through the crowd. Cassandra turned around, her eyes widening in panic. What is this?" she stammered into the mic. "This isn't my slideshow, we're having technical difficulties." "No difficulties, Aunt Cassie," I said. I had plugged a spare microphone into the soundboard. My voice boomed out over the speakers, cold, calm, and loud. "The projection is working perfectly." I clicked to the next slide. It was a side-by-side comparison. On the left, the tearful selfie she had sent the family last week, supposedly from her hospital bed. On the right, the photo from her secret Instagram account, taken on the exact same day. She was in a tiny bikini, holding a margarita on the balcony of her new Boca condo. The timestamp was clearly visible. The murmurs in the crowd escalated into loud whispers. People were pointing at the screen. "Stop it," Cassandra shrieked, her fragile whisper entirely vanishing. She was gripping the podium with white-knuckled strength. "Turn it off, she's lying, this is photoshopped. My niece has always hated me." "I don't hate you, Cassandra," I said over the speakers. "I just follow the money." And the money went straight from Nana and Papa's house to Boca Raton. I clicked the next slide. It was a collage of her wellness retreat photos, getting a massage, eating oysters, trying on designer clothes. "You see," I addressed the crowd, my voice steady despite the adrenaline roaring in my ears, "Aunt Cassandra doesn't have idiopathic neuromyelitic fibrosarcoma. Because that disease does not exist. It is entirely made up." She took $380,000 from her elderly parents, forcing them out of their home of 50 years, so she could buy a luxury condo in Florida. "Liar," Cassandra screamed. She actually stepped away from the podium, standing perfectly upright, completely forgetting the wheelchair she had arrived in. "Mom, Dad, don't listen to her. She's insane, she hacked my accounts to frame me." My grandfather stood up slowly. He looked at the screen, then at Cassandra standing healthily on the stage, then back to the screen. His face was unreadable. "Are you done, Cassie?" I asked. "Because I have one more slide, and it has audio." I hit the spacebar. The image on the screen changed to a wide shot of her condo building, taken by Marcus. And then, her own voice, loud and clear, blasted through the ballroom speakers. "The marble countertops arrive on Tuesday. God, I can't wait." No, they have no idea. My mom is literally packing up her porcelain dolls right now, crying over the house. It's pathetic, honestly. But hey, boomers ruined the economy, they owe us a house, right? The Swiss clinic excuse worked like a charm. I just told them the doctors need absolute isolation for my immune system, so they can't even visit or call too often. It's the perfect crime, babe. I'm literally sipping a mojito in Boca while they pack my boxes in the snow. The recording ended. The silence in the ballroom was absolute, heavy, and suffocating. It was the silence of a vacuum, right before an explosion. Every single pair of eyes in the room was fixed on Cassandra. The heavy theatrical makeup she wore couldn't hide the absolute terror washing over her features. She looked like a cornered rat. She looked at her friends, who were staring at her with disgust. She looked at the community members who had just handed her envelopes of cash. Then she looked at my grandfather. Papa didn't yell. He didn't scream. He walked very slowly to the front of the stage. The crowd parted for him as if he were Moses parting the Red Sea. He stood at the base of the stage, looking up at the daughter he had been willing to bankrupt himself to save. "Papa," Cassandra squeaked, her voice trembling for real this time. "Papa, I can explain, it's out of context, You are going to wire that money back," Papa said. His voice was terrifyingly quiet, but it carried to the back of the room. "Every single cent, tonight." I can't, it's in the house," she cried. "Then you will sell the condo," Papa said, his voice as hard as flint. "You will sell it, you will return our money, and then you will never, ever speak to us again. Do you understand me?" "Dad, please." "Do you understand me?" Papa roared. It was a sound I had never heard him make in my 30 years of life. It shook the crystal chandeliers. Cassandra flinched violently. She nodded, tears of actual panic streaming down her face, ruining her pale makeup. "Arthur," my grandmother said. She was standing next to me at the soundboard now. Her face was pale, but her jaw was set. She looked at Cassandra with a coldness that chilled me to the bone. "We are going home. Call the police on the way. I want her arrested for fraud." Chaos descended. The guests, realizing they had been scammed out of their $50 entry fees and donations, turned on Cassandra. People were demanding their money back immediately. The hired nurse who had pushed her wheelchair looked disgusted and walked out. Cassandra, realizing she was entirely surrounded by furious victims, actually tried to run. She bolted off the side of the stage, abandoning her wheelchair, but was intercepted by my uncles, who blocked the emergency exit until the police arrived. I stood by the soundboard, shutting down my laptop. The adrenaline was fading, leaving me with a profound sense of exhaustion, but also a deep, satisfying warmth in my chest. The aftermath was a legal and logistical nightmare, but a triumphant one. Because I had caught it just days before my grandparents were scheduled to close on their house, we were able to contact the buyer. When we explained the situation and threatened to involve the press if he was difficult about breaking the contract, he backed out gracefully. My grandparents didn't have to move. The boxes were unpacked. The floorboards continued to creak. Cassandra was arrested that night for multiple counts of fraud, grand theft, and wire fraud. Because she had crossed state lines to purchase the property with stolen funds, the FBI actually got involved. Her assets were frozen. The Boca Raton condo was seized and liquidated by the court to pay back my grandparents' stolen money. Cassandra tried to play the victim during the trial. She cried in front of the judge, claiming she had a severe psychological condition that made her lie, that she was addicted to the attention, that she needed help, not prison. The judge, clearly unamused by her theatrics, sentenced her to 5 years in a federal penitentiary, followed by strict probation and mandatory restitution for the legal fees she had forced my grandparents to incur. Our family cut her off completely. We changed the locks on Nana and Papa's house. We blocked her